Okay guys, here we are ready to install a wideband in the CSX. As you can see, we're going to be using a PLX Devices unit. In the middle there you can see the red box. That's basically the unit that controls everything. The black cable going to the oxygen sensor there is the actual oxygen sensor. This style of wideband uses a Bosch type sensor available at any parts store. It's kind of great that way. The gray cable goes from the oxygen sensor to the box itself, and then of course you've got the gauge that's going to give us a little bit of a readout. Now we do plan on using the PLX's narrowband output in order to control our stock factory computer, and then we plan on using the 5-volt source to data log and things like that eventually. So we're going to be using both of those outputs. I think only the narrowband is going to be used today. I'll go ahead and mess with the wideband 5-volt output later, but nonetheless we're going to have a nice gauge. We're going to be able to do some tuning based off of this. So let's go ahead and get started with our project. To get started, the first thing that I'm going to do is go ahead and unplug the stock oxygen sensor. I took an old oxygen sensor and then took the wires out of it and everything, so I had the bottom part of the plug for it. I'm going to go ahead and just plug that into the harness here and reinstall. We're keeping everything with a factory look in this for the most part, or at least as much as we can, so this will really help that effect. You won't notice unless you're looking for it. Here's the oxygen sensor socket I use. It's got the little slit so you can get the wiring down there, and it's 1 inch on the end. So that way you can use either a 1-inch wrench or you can use a 3/8 drive ratchet like I'm using here. It's a great socket. If it gives you any trouble coming out, go ahead and use some heat to persuade it. I'm not going to be able to show you this because you just can't get a camera under the car to see it well. So here we go anyway. It might say brake lube, but I'm telling you right now, guys, this 3M copper anti-seize has been great for me. It is generally speaking good for about 2200 degrees. At least that's what it claims on the bottle. So go ahead and coat the threads of your oxygen sensor in this, and life will be quite a bit better, guys, because nothing is worse than struggling to get an oxygen sensor out and tearing up the threads and everything. If you guys saw my turbo video, you probably noticed that the oxygen sensor threads on the swing valve housing were pretty nappy because it was just corrosion over time. Now that we've got the wideband sensor installed in the swing valve, we can go ahead and pull the cable for it up, and what I'm going to do is go ahead and route it along the stock wiring harness right here. And as I go, I'm going to tuck it back up towards the firewall, and then it's going to run along with the factory harness right over there to the grommet at the firewall on the driver's side next to the strut tower, and I'm going to go ahead and slide the cable in there. There's already a hole that's been cut for some old stereo stuff that the gentleman who owned the car last had installed. That's not being occupied right now because I'm not a big stereo guy, so we'll just go ahead and slide it through there. Plenty of room and no problems for all of our cables to run through there. Here's the finished product. You can't really tell that there's anything being run up along the firewall at all. To the casual observer, it's all stock under the hood. Well, except for that turbo and intercooler piping and the chrome valve cover, of course. But other than that, maybe the air filter, all stock. Here you can see just how much cable they give you with this kit. Plenty enough room to have the box in the glove box here and the cable run right to it. Actually, you end up with about 2 to 3 feet of extra cable. So we're going to go ahead and remove the glove box. Not really a big deal. There's 2 screws on the top of the glove box at the corners, 2 in the middle near the latch, and then 2 at each bottom corner on the bottom, obviously. Those screws, once removed, will allow you to pull the whole thing out, including the glove box door. I think there's 4 screws that hold the glove box door to the metal piece that is kind of a support below the glove box. Get all that removed, separate the glove box door from the actual plastic interior glove box, and we're going to be ready to hide a little box in another box. So that'll be neat. Not that it was entirely necessary, but I went ahead and used a Sharpie to outline the position of the box in the glove box. And there it is. So pretty easy to see where it's going to go. I went ahead and just eyeballed it as far as the position of the holes that I went to drill here. And it looks kind of clunky and ungangly. Safety, Don't think so. What's that? But nonetheless, we got 2 3/4-inch holes, roughly where they need to be. We'll add another one later for the line to transmit to the wideband gauge itself, and we'll be all set. I do go ahead and clean these up, make them a little bit more square and things so that everything fits. There she blows. We've got all of the wires and cables and everything we're going to need hooked up into the glove box. We just need to go ahead and get this thing secured. In order to hold the wideband controller portion in place, I had a little bit of 3M double-sided adhesive tape that you use for ground effects and things. So I know that that's going to be durable enough to hold up in the glove box and the heat of the car without getting all sticky and nasty and coming loose. I cleaned the glove box floor real thoroughly before I laid this down. I made sure when I cut the holes and everything that I knew which way I was going to orient the box in the glove box. So all that being said, just use some sense. You're going to obviously have to mount it where you want it and things. I probably could have snaked the cables through the vent holes in the cassette portion of the glove box, but at the same time I wanted to maybe put some cassettes in there. I'm thinking a little Iron Maiden would go well in my glove box, be a little bit of a period addition to the car. Alright, we're going to go ahead and strip a wire so we can get 12 volts to the wideband controller. I'm stealing a spot that's empty in the fuse block for that, and going to run a 5 amp fuse in line with this behind the dash as recommended by PLX. Once we get this terminal crimped on here, we're going to be good to go. When it comes to widebands, I've always been a fan of grounding them to the battery. As you can see, this battery terminal end has come to the end of its life. Doesn't look very good at all. It's actually really nasty. And so what we're going to do is go ahead and install an old gold-plated style AutoZone special terminal, no big deal. But it's got many spots for various grounds and things, and I've had good success with them. So we're going to throw that on there. The fact that it's gold and kind of goes along with the color scheme of the vehicle is just a little added bonus. The battery terminal uses an Allen key to hold the cables in place. I'm using an 18 gauge wire because that's what I had lying around. It's more than large enough to provide a good ground for the PLX unit. So I'm just going to go ahead and include that in there with the other battery grounds. We've got power, we've got ground. Now it's time to get a signal. This is the connector for the S-Spec, and I'm carefully trying to pull out the red lock piece, which has been pre-broken for my convenience. Once I get this thing picked out, I'm going to be able to go ahead and install a new terminal into cavity number 41. I'm using a new terminal. Well, I guess it's not really new. I had it lying around the garage. But what I'm trying to do with this whole installation, again, is to make it to where it's as factory as possible and able to be reverted to 100% factory when I go back, if I so choose. So what I've done here is pull the original oxygen sensor wire out, and I've tucked it back in the harness. I'm going to stick my new terminal that you can see here into the cavity, and then I'm going to be able to run that on into the car. Okay guys, you can see there's no wires hanging down there or anywhere else in the car where we've gone ahead and routed the stuff over to the box, and then secondarily run the gauge up towards the center console here. I'm sorry, I can't bring myself to do anything too crazy to these numbered Shelby vehicles. So as a result, the gauge is actually in the center console. We plan on running it to a computer anyway. So let's go ahead and just confirm that it's working here. There we go. Alright. And here we are. You can see we're running a little bit lean, but the computer's still learning since I just plugged the battery back in. Doing our thing. And I'm honestly going to expect this is going to be a little lean too. With that turbo change, it's probably going to take a little while for the car to learn the idle and add a little bit more fuel with the trim and things. So here we are in the car, looking good. Alright, we'll catch you guys again. Gonna do the suspension next.